Hi there, my name is Samantha Harris, and this is my first book critique. The book I have selected to feature is called St. George and the Dragon, retold by Margaret Hodges. This story is about a dragon that takes over a village, so the princess flees the village to go find someone to help. She finds St. George, and together they travel back to her village. George encounters the dragon 3 times. 2 of the times he becomes wounded and is healed by prayer. The third battle, he is able to slay the beast. Afterwards, the entire village celebrates him, and the king offers his daughter's hand in marriage. George accepts, and they live happily ever after. The first lesson I have prepared is for a 4th grade religion class. Students will be put into groups of 3, and each group will create a think link. Their think link must include a minimum of 3 links. They must summarize the St. George's story, list characteristics of what they think made him a saint, and finally choose one or more saints that they believe shared similar characteristics. Here I have provided an example of the kind of think link that my students will create. Here's the example of the think link the students will create. I have put in 3 links here. The first one would be categorized under the summary of St. George. Here is just a link to a YouTube video about his story. Another example, I just created a list of characteristics that he had that I thought that made him a saint. And finally, this third link, I provided a picture of St. Joan Arc to be an example that this could be one of the saints the students could compare and contrast. The second lesson I have created is for a 3rd grade art class. In this lesson, the students will choose one of the 3 mediums I have provided for them to paint the dragon. They will be encouraged to dictate how they want to show their audience or fellow students their interpretation of the dragon. After an informal presentation in class of their piece, they will hang their pictures in the hallway with a brief description of why they decided to paint the dragon the way that they did. For the next 7 books, I will provide a brief description of the stories. The first book I would like to talk about is called Frog and Toad Together, written by Arnold Lobel. This is a collection of 5 short stories about the adventures of 2 best friends, Frog and Toad. The next book is called Wolf in the Snow, written by Matthew Cordell. This is a story about a little girl who finds a baby wolf in the snow, takes pity on him, and decides to carry him onward. She ends up finding his pack and drops him off there and continues her way home. As she goes home, she becomes tired and collapses in the snow. To return the favor, the baby wolf sees her, gathers his pack, and they all begin to howl until the little girl is found by her family and is taken home to safety. The next book is called A Visit to William Blank's Inn, written by Nancy Willard. This is a story about a babysitter who reads a book to her child right before bed that talks about William Blank's Inn. When she finishes the story and leaves the room, the child then decides to think of all the things that could happen around the fantastical inn of William Blake. The next book is called Tuesday, and it is written by David Wiesner. This is a story about animals being able to fly the minute the clock strikes 12 on Tuesday. It begins with frogs jumping on lily pads flying through the air. They end up going into houses and through the town and all sorts of adventures. When the morning hits, the humans are very confused why all these lily pads are everywhere. The story ends with a very whimsical way of showing that the next Tuesday night, pigs start floating in the air. The next book is called Radiant Child by Javaka Steptoe. This is a book about a young artist named Jean Michael in Brooklyn. His style is described as sloppy, ugly, sometimes weird, but still beautiful. He learns about art and how to appreciate it through his sick mother. Her sickness inspires him to use his art to express his confusion and hurt. As he grows up, he leaves Brooklyn and heads to New York and becomes a famous artist. The next book is called Beautiful Blackbird and is written by Ashley Bryan. This is a story about a community of birds who glorify how beautiful this blackbird is. Throughout the story, they ask the blackbird to paint black on them so they too can be beautiful. The blackbird insists that their inner beauty is the most important thing, but still decides to paint them with black paint. The last book in this book critique is Rapunzel, written and illustrated by Paul Zelinsky. This is the classic story of Rapunzel, who is taken away from her parents by the witch and put in a tower so that no one can have her. She soon finds a prince who falls in love with her and climbs the tower. They end up getting married. Her evil mother finds out that she has fallen in love with the prince and sends Rapunzel away. She cuts off all of her hair and tricks the prince into climbing the tower, only to throw him off and make him blind. The prince stumbles and finds Rapunzel, and her tears heal him. They end up falling in love all over again and living happy ever after. Thanks for watching!